2 hits, 1 walk, a highlight reel defensive play. On paper, Kim Hye-seong's first start of the 2026 season looks like a solid debut, but if you look closer, this wasn't just a good game. It was a precise demonstration of how small, controlled decisions can quietly shift a roster's internal balance, because what Kim did in this game wasn't loud. It was efficient, calculated, and more importantly, it was exactly what the Dodgers needed at a very specific moment. The Dodgers entered Toronto facing the Blue Jays in a World Series rematch. But the bigger story wasn't the opponent, it was the absence of Mookie Betts, placed on the injured list with an oblique issue. That forced a structural adjustment. Kim Hye-seong, recalled from AAA just a day earlier, steps into the lineup. 9th spot, shortstop, facing Max Scherzer, low expectations, limited role. Simple assignment, don't disrupt the machine. Instead, he enhanced it. At the surface level, this is easy to frame. A call-up takes advantage of his opportunity. Kim goes 2 for 4, draws a walk, scores a run, and flashes defensive value. The Dodgers roll to a 14-2 win behind a dominant offensive performance. It fits the classic next man up story. A team loses a star, plugs in a replacement, and keeps moving without friction. Kim's role seems straightforward. Bottom of the order contact hitter, situational defender, platoon option against right-handed pitching. And against a veteran like Scherzer, just surviving the at-bats already counts as success. But that framing misses the real impact, because Kim didn't just fill a spot, he changed the texture of the lineup. The key detail isn't the 2 hits, it's how they happened and when. Start with the 4th inning. Facing left-hander Josh Fleming, Kim draws a walk. That alone is subtle, but important. A call-up in his first start doesn't chase, doesn't expand. He stays within the zone profile. That signals discipline, not reaction. Then the 7th inning, he beats out an infield hit against Tommy Nance. That's not power, that's pressure. Infield hits force defenses to rush. They create micro errors in timing, and for a lineup like the Dodgers, that matters because it disrupts defensive rhythm behind elite hitters. Moments later, Kim scores on a Freddie Freeman double. That's sequencing impact. Not highlight worthy, but structurally important. Then the 8th inning. He singles again, this time clean contact against Spencer Miles. Now the pattern is clear. Kim isn't guessing. He's tracking velocity bands, staying short to the ball, and forcing pitchers to work deeper into counts, even from the 9 spot. That changes how the lineup turns over. Instead of a soft reset at the bottom, the Dodgers maintain pressure. And that's where games quietly get out of reach. Here's what most people missed. Kim didn't just perform. He removed downtime from the lineup. In most lineups, the 9th spot is a pacing break, a moment where pitchers can reset, attack, and regain control. That didn't exist in this game. Every at-bat carried resistance. Even the outs were controlled. Fly balls, contact, no wasted swings. That forces pitchers to stay in high-leverage mode longer than expected. And against a lineup like the Dodgers, that's dangerous. Because once fatigue sets in, even slightly, mistakes follow. Kim didn't extend the lineup, he erased the only place pitchers could breathe. The defining moment wasn't one of his hits, it was the defensive play in the 7th inning. The basket catch in shallow left center off Andres Gimenez. On the surface, it's a highlight. Good range, good instincts, but context matters. At that point in the game, Toronto was already trailing, but not completely out of it. A base hit there potentially creates traffic, forces the Dodgers to shift defensive positioning, changes pitching approach. Instead, Kim closes the door instantly. No base runner, no momentum shift, no extended inning. That's the kind of defensive efficiency that doesn't just prevent runs, it preserves structure. And when a team is already leading, preserving structure is how you lock the game. That catch didn't save a run. It prevented the game from changing shape. For the Dodgers, this performance matters beyond one game. They're not just replacing Mookie Betts, they're recalibrating how the bottom of their lineup functions. With Kim and Miguel Rojas likely forming a platoon, the expectation was situational stability. But Kim offers something different. Contact without passivity, discipline without hesitation, defensive range with confidence. That combination allows the Dodgers to maintain pressure across all 9 spots, something very few teams can sustain. And against high-end pitching, that's a competitive edge. For Kim himself, this isn't just a strong debut. It's a proof of fit. He doesn't need to carry the offense. He doesn't need power numbers. He just needs to eliminate weak at bats. And in this game, he did exactly that. That earns trust. And in a roster this deep, trust determines playing time more than raw stats. Kim Hye-seong's first start of the 2026 season won't dominate headlines. No home runs, no massive stat line, no singular defining moment. But that's exactly the point. This was a game built on precision. Every at-bat had purpose. Every defensive movement had control. And in a sport decided by inches and timing, that level of detail changes outcomes more than raw talent ever will. The Dodgers didn't just win because they were better. They won because for 9 innings, they gave the Blue Jays no space to recover. And Kim Hye-seong was right at the center of that, quietly removing every margin the opponent needed to stay alive. He wasn't even supposed to be in the lineup. Not this soon, not in a game like this. And yet, by the end of the night, he was impossible to ignore because Kim Hye-seong didn't just show up. He forced his way into the story. Called up less than 24 hours earlier, buried on the depth chart, thrown into a lineup because of an injury. This was supposed to be a fill-in moment. Instead, it turned into something much bigger. The Los Angeles Dodgers walked into Rogers Center for a World Series rematch against the Toronto Blue Jays. Big stage, heavy expectations, and right at the center of it, a player who started the season in AAA. That's the pressure, because this wasn't just a debut. This was an opportunity that doesn't come twice. With Mookie Betts sidelined, the Dodgers needed stability at shortstop. Not flash, not risk. Just don't make mistakes. Kim didn't just avoid mistakes. He made plays. Early on, it looked quiet, a flyout, another missed chance, nothing special, but then the game started to open. 4th inning, he works a walk, stays patient, doesn't chase. 7th inning, this is where everything shifts. A soft infield hit, nothing flashy, but it keeps the inning alive. Moments later, he scores on a double from Freddie Freeman. That's contribution. Subtle. Necessary. Then came the moment. Bottom of the 7th. Ball lifted into shallow left center. Awkward angle. Dangerous space. Most players hesitate. Kim didn't. He sprinted back, tracked it over his shoulder, and made a basket catch on the run. Clean, calm, perfect. That's not routine. That's the kind of play that tells a dugout this guy belongs. And just in case that wasn't enough, he came back in the 8th and did it again. Another hit, solid contact, multi-hit game, from AAA call-up to one of the most productive players on the field. That's the turning point. Because this wasn't just about one game, this was about a roster problem and a potential solution. The Dodgers weren't planning to lean on Kim. They had a platoon in mind, limited exposure, controlled usage. But performances like this don't stay in a box. Now the questions change. Can he handle everyday at-bats? Does he deserve more than a platoon role? Because when a player gives you defense like that and quietly stacks quality at-bats, you don't pull him out. You lean in. And the impact, the Dodgers didn't just win, they dominated. 14-2, 17 hits, total control. But inside that explosion, a smaller story might matter more. A young infielder just proved he can stabilize a championship roster immediately. No adjustment period, no hesitation, just execution. And in a season where depth decides everything, that's dangerous. Because now the Dodgers don't just have stars, they have options. And Kim Hye-seong just turned one opportunity into real pressure on the lineup. One start, one defensive gem, one quiet takeover, and suddenly he's not just filling in anymore.